If you're a student or early career professional thinking, I want my work to matter, but I also need to pay the bills. I don't want to waste my time doing something meaningless, but I also can't afford to get this wrong, this episode is for you. Because when it comes to your career, purpose and practicality do not need to sit on opposite sides of the table. If you are labouring under the myth that meaningful work is something you can earn later, or that impact can only come after stability, that your values are a luxury, we're going to be challenging that today. Because work that matters isn't about sacrifice. Rather, it's about creating value in ways that align with what you care about. By the end of this episode, you will understand how to connect your values to real paid work, how value creation, not job titles, drives purposeful careers, and how collaboration turns values into opportunities. One idea you hear today might completely change how you think about building a career that actually feels worth it. So let's get inspired. Welcome back to Inspiring Entrepreneurs. I'm Katie McNair, Marketing and Communications Manager from Strathclyde Inspire, and today we're talking about something many students feel deeply, the desire for work that matters. Joining me today are three guests who built careers around impact, collaboration and value creation in very different ways. Jenna Masterton is a Strathclyde alumnus and former primary school teacher turned entrepreneur. She is the founder of Kenoro, a category-defining technology that allows learners to exercise their rights to own their data from the early years. Jenna previously won Inspire 100, graduating from both Inspire's Accelerator programme and Glasgow Innovation District's Venture Impact Studio. Sarah Dees brings extensive experience in leadership, business and sustainability in the private and public sectors. Latterly, she was Chief Executive of Cooperative Development Scotland, a Scottish enterprise subsidiary. Driven by the commitment to building an economy that delivers social justice within planetary limits, she was co-founder and trustee of Wellbeing Economy Alliance Scotland. She also chaired North Ayrshire's Community Wealth Building Expert Advisory Group and is a visiting professor at the University of Strathclyde's Hunter Centre for Entrepreneurship, where she specialises in sustainable business. Scott Kennedy is a Strathclyde alumnus and advocate for driving environmental and social impact through sustainable, forward-thinking business models. He is a co-founder of Revive Eco, an environmental startup turning used coffee grounds into high-value natural oils and chemicals for use in the cosmetics and food and drink industries, where his work shows how a values-led idea can become a scalable business, creating environmental impact, commercial value, and real jobs. Together, we're exploring how to build a career journey that matters to you without opting out of financial reality. Jenna, Scott, and Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to start by getting your opinions on some ideas or perhaps misconceptions even that might exist in the minds of some of our listeners. Idea one, having a successful career involves choosing between meaning and money. Sarah, with the expertise that you've built in sustainable business and in wealth building and well-being, would you say that this is true?
Definitely not, no. I would encourage listeners to look for a company that has committed to a triple bottom line. So that's a business that is prioritizing, maximizing its impact for people, planet, and profit. PPP, people, planet, and profit. And it's a framework that focuses, in addition to the traditional measures of financial metrics, on social responsibility. So things like fair work and community impact, and also on environmental stewardship. So that's the carbon footprint, for example, or resource sustainability. So a triple bottom line company. And I think there's definitely all companies should be focusing on a triple bottom line, and there is a growing movement towards it. And that's seen by the number of companies that are signing up and being accredited for B Corp accreditation, for example.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, as well as the option of looking for a company that is going to help you live the values that you want to, there's the option of starting your own. And we have a couple of entrepreneurs here who did just that. So Jenna, you pivoted actually from a career in teaching to becoming a founder. So has it been your experience that it's not possible to pursue purpose at the start of your career?
No, I think for me, it was a calling, and that often means that what you're looking to do doesn't exist yet. So that can be confusing. People don't understand, you don't know how to communicate it. Doesn't mean it's not possible though. It might take time for your idea to formulate, and you will need guidance and mentorship and coaching and courses that can unlock skills that you don't have yet. But I do always remember someone telling me that if this really matters to you, it doesn't matter how long it will take. The meaning is worth the pursuit. And you may have to do something alongside this endeavour that stacks the eggs. So, what is your minimal amount of money you need to survive in a month? And can you find a job that just keeps you covered to allow you time to pursue the idea, to see if there's something in it? So yeah, you might have to do something else on the side, like whole side hustle mentality, or find other ways and means to fund what you do. Depends what stage you're in your career, but it's possible.
Yeah. I love this stacking the eggs idea. Can you tell me a bit more about what that means?
Well, I guess it just means, and I hope that I've come across well in saying this, but you might want to get a Saturday job in Marks and Spencers, putting ambient products out on the shelf. Or you may know someone like in my situation, my partner has a meal prep company. So I would literally go on the line with his team and put broccoli in and chicken in and weigh it out. And I had to do that. Yeah, just something that you are capable of doing that doesn't distract you
Mm.
from your main why. Has a short lifespan, say.
Yeah, I think that's really important and interesting thing to think about, that you can be still pursuing something while it might not even look like you are. You're there putting the things in the meal prep, or you're there doing the job that just gets you the bills paid, but
Yes.
you're building something else around it in your mind, in your time, and it can all come together
Yeah.
in the time that it takes.
And removing the shame from that
Hmm.
and being proud that that might be what it takes, because a lot of people don't talk about that enough, that actually to get to that 10-year overnight success, they've maybe done multiple jobs or funded it in multiple ways to keep themselves alive at times.
It's great to be able to have these conversations so that, yes, people can hear, because you do see so much of the overnight success, theoretically, the thing that scaled so fast that people can't believe. But behind those stories, there is real life, isn't there? So I'm really grateful that you're willing to come and talk about the real life aspect of it. Okay, idea 3. I'm just one person. I can't possibly make a difference. So, Scott, your idea, it grew from a background of working in coffee shops and then receiving an assignment at university to develop a business idea that would create a positive impact. Did you ever think that the problem of food waste, which is massive, was just too big for you to start tackling on your own?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, and I guess it was that combination of working in the kind of hospitality sector and studying entrepreneurship that those kind of worlds collided. We sort of pinpointed there's so much food waste, and as a kind of small university group project, I think we kind of maybe realised that is quite a large issue to tackle. So we kind of started to look kind of more specifically at coffee waste, which is still a huge issue, a huge kind of task to undertake. I guess one of the kind of key learnings we had early on was how kind of open the sort of the community, both like in the university, but also kind of companies, other entrepreneurs, other founders were to give us their time. We were able to kind of bounce ideas off them, challenges. You kind of quite quickly start to feel not as maybe kind of isolated as soon as you start to open up, which I think is very much easier said than done. But I guess we were quite kind of fortunate being in the kind of Strathclyde. I think being in Scotland generally as well, there is like a real kind of willingness to, I guess, give back and give time. So I think that would be one key learning, that maybe had we been more comfortable doing that earlier, we might have kind of moved forward a bit more quickly. But on the whole, people are really kind of willing to help, as they've been in our shoes at some point.
Yeah, I think having that community and the people around you who might not have the same goal as you, but they've certainly been through the process of having some sort of value or some sort of dream, some sort of change that they wanted to make, and they've gone through that journey. Maybe they're a few steps ahead of you, maybe they're very far ahead, and them being willing to give that knowledge back is a really powerful thing. That's definitely one of the key aims of Strathclyde Inspire. We talk about a lot about entrepreneurship being for all, and it's about people who want to start businesses, and also beyond that idea of people, if you are willing to take on the skill set of an entrepreneurial thinker. And we talk about these skills of resilience, value creation, forward thinking, communication, collaboration, those being the key things that will help an entrepreneur reach what it is they're trying to achieve, and can also help people who are looking for personal and professional success and whatever kind of guise that might be, whether it's the career of your dreams, working for a particular employer, making a change in your community. Um, I think one of the things that feels particularly relevant to talk about today is the value creation aspect of that. So I wondered if anyone had any thoughts on what value creation means to you and how it sits at the heart of work that matters.
Yeah, happy to kind of go in terms of kind of our experience, and I think values to us, I guess it's much like kind of how Sarah opened. It kind of encompasses so many different aspects. I guess kind of traditionally the idea of values, like how are you creating revenue and how are you creating value for those that are maybe investing in the company. But I think for us, the sort of environmental value of the company, that's always been, I guess, the driver for founding Revive, but also our kind of continued sort of motivation, but also the kind of people behind it. I guess we've always wanted to try and instill values in the company that are important to us as people, aside from being kind of like founders of a business. So we've done a lot of work on the kind of culture, you know, living wage. Like we have all these kind of, I guess, like absolute non-negotiables. Anytime we do an internship, we will pay them the living wage for that. It's things that we've kind of wanted to instill from the start. And I think it's kind of, if you do that almost when no one's watching you, that's how you build like a really good culture, because we're not doing it to kind of to tell people we're doing it, conscious I am telling you how I'm doing it. But that's not the reason we're doing it. It's because that's the kind of values we have as a company. So yeah, I think that's been very important for us. It's that kind of combination of the environmental impact, the kind of impact on the people working in the company. And then of course you need to have a kind of sustainable financial model that underpins it. Otherwise we won't be here in a year. But I think they all can work nicely hand in hand.
And it's almost like they become your guiding principles. They can help with decision making because you already know, well, I'm not going here because this is what we've agreed.
Yep.
And that's what's important to us. And I think sometimes people can feel so overwhelmed at the start of a career, at the start of trying to build something, whether it's a career or a company, of, well, how do I make decision as to which path to take and what should I, is this better than this? And having those kind of values of things that are non-negotiable can sometimes just help block out some of the noise because you think, well, I don't even need to consider those options because it has to be living wage, it has to be environmentally friendly, it has to be whatever it is that you've decided at the core is what matters to you. Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I like the sentiment about integrity. For me, that is doing the right thing when no one's watching. So if you start off like that, that keeps you on track. Um, I actually was at an event yesterday. We were talking about North Star metrics, and I'm obviously within the education space, and maybe there's not only one North Star, maybe there's a few. So, but I do think, as you said, this core of why you're doing what you're doing. And when it comes to value creation, for me, I've been lucky to have had support from models and frameworks that think about the environmental, social, economic impact of what you're doing, short, medium, long term metrics to keep you on track with that too. And ultimately, in innovation and entrepreneurship, quite often you're looking to completely turn the head of something. And what I mean by that is you might have to design new metrics to understand what the value is that you want to add. And that is a discovery process in itself. Um, but through prototyping and beta testing, you see that come alive, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Talking about decision making, especially in that area of, well, I might not see, this thing might not exist yet. I don't have an example. How can students think about identifying what they actually care about and then translate that into something that's useful or valuable?
Yeah, I mean, I guess studying entrepreneurship at Strathclyde, I guess we were always, I guess, similar to Jen, we had sort of like frameworks, and we were almost given tasks of simple things like when you're walking from the train station to university or work, look at things that maybe annoy you, things that could be better. Just starting with yourself, things you see on a daily basis that either you're kind of finding a problem that you could find a solution for, or you're just kind of maybe observing things that you're passionate about, if it's nature, like whatever that might be. I think it's taking a moment to almost kind of just reflect. It's not kind of rocket science, and not trying to maybe think things can maybe be trivialized a little bit, but actually if you just kind of look at your day-to-day life, that's maybe a good kind of starting point of what do I care about, what's kind of getting me out of bed in the morning, and then really kind of reflect on that as a starting point.
Turns every problem into potential, really, thinking that way. It's interesting, we had a guest on previous episode, Gavin, who was talking about he has exited a venture, and he was talking about his plans for the next one, and it's completely different to the one he worked in before. And I was kind of saying, that's a shift. What got you from here to there? And he was saying, oh, I just went through a process that really annoyed me, and I thought, there has to be a better way of doing this. This does not work at all. I want to fix it. And that's what's taken him there. And having the openness to spot that kind of opportunity, I think is certainly part of it. So when you have this idea or this problem that you want to attend to, I think it's fair to say that purpose-driven work is rarely something that happens alone. So why does collaboration matter so much when it comes to multiplying impact or having an impact?
I like a African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together.
Okay.
And I think that the challenges that we face in society at the moment, they're systemic, they're huge, and they require that mix of skills, perspectives, resources coming together to address the challenge. And so I think collaboration is key to achieve that.
Yeah. And does anyone have any insights as to how to be a good collaborator, how to make sure that you are working together instead of pulling apart? Because we often find as well that collaboration can work best when it's people with quite different perspectives coming together. Any ways of navigating that?
When it comes to a tech startup, um, a product owner, product manager role is really crucial. If you don't have a technical background like myself, I have navigated it by reading books, joining webinars, going to community events in Glasgow and Edinburgh, like AI Builders or Founders Meetup. Even really technical events that earlier versions of myself would just not have had the confidence to go into the room, or sometimes being the only female in a room, but I've forced myself because that's where I'm going to learn. So yeah, in the spaces where the minds of others are the experts, that's where you will find the connects that you need. And once you know what your role needs to be, you quite quickly realize what's missing, and others can help guide you and mentor you and coach you to fulfill those empty voids.
Yeah.
One at a time.
Okay. And so, what should we look for in putting together teams or in joining organizations or as we go through our communities? What is helpful to look for if we want to be creating meaningful value together?
I think a bit of kind of alignment and sort of passion and drive, because I guess that kind of one shared goal, and you know that everyone maybe left to their own devices knows, well, that is kind of what we're aiming to get to, and I know how my work can kind of feed into that. I think sort of multidisciplinary teams and collaboration is key as well. I think having, you know, maybe the more kind of technical people with the more operational or commercial, I think having that kind of mix of skill sets is great, because that's where you can have people challenging each other, and I guess that's where you then start to get some good kind of solutions and results. And I suppose a kind of open platform as well, having people that are open to learning, open to making mistakes. If you've maybe got people in a team that kind of think, you know, I've done it this way before, therefore this is the way to do it, I think that's maybe when you'll run into roadblocks or end up going down a path that isn't going to lead to as much like impact and kind of value being created.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that culture of empowerment is really underlines what everything that's been said. One of the business models I love is employee ownership, which is when a business is owned by the people who work in it, either directly or through a trust. And it's a model that really empowers employees. And an example I've often quoted is W.L. Gore, the manufacturers of Gore-Tex, well known for that. That's an employee-owned business, and they have this concept of the water line. So if you imagine we're all in a ship together, and the staff, they're empowered to innovate, to make decisions individually as a team, but they're all in the boat together. Then what they mustn't do is puncture below the waterline, because that could take them all down. But so they've got to make a judgment as to where the risk is as they use that empowered culture that they're thriving in.
But that's something we have introduced over the last 12 months. So we've introduced an EMI scheme as well. So all of our employees are now kind of building up a shareholding in the company. And again, it's that kind of ethos, because we thought what better way to kind of reward and motivate people, but I guess more so it's just building a community. It's not the founder's company, it's not the investors, it's everyone working in it day to day is kind of sharing in that, I guess, the excitement of where we could take things.
It's a strong motivator for sure. Yeah. So, Jenna, if you would be willing to chat to us a little bit about your personal journey, and how your values have shaped the work that you've decided to pursue.
Yeah, so whether it's a calling or you have a lived experience, a qualification, I believe in being the founder of Canoro that we have some golden insights that exist in our early years. So in that 0 to 8 space, I'm sure there's a Robert Burns quote about show me the man when he's 7 and I'll show you the boy when I'm 7 and I'll show you the man. So I think if you can connect some dots and really reflect on how your career can weave from that golden thread of the early years. And therefore, in my own journey, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I have always wanted to do something that no one else is doing. In my teaching career, I got to a point where I wanted the buck to stop with me. I wanted to be the final decision maker. I wanted to raise the bar on performance and excellence. So, um, it was uh it wasn't just like a moment where it was like this epiphany. It happened over time. And I would say the big bang moment was when I did a course at Edinburgh University's Data Lab. And there was a quote, it was a public, private, and third sector self paced course. And the quote was, "We have a moral imperative to advance society by the data we do or do not obtain." And I went on a 10K run. And by the end of that weekend, I'd squirreled away. One of my friends was in San Francisco at the time, so I was talking round the clock. And I'd created this brand, came up with this name, because kin comes from kin for kindergarten, family, and oro, or is Japanese, Spanish, Italian, and Gaelic for gold. So this golden insights from the early years. And even when I claimed that name, I didn't quite know what the product would be yet, but I knew that it would house whatever we came up with. And then finding other people like a UI UX specialist or a developer, front end designer, an investor that wanted to back what I was doing, it all came together in about 6 months. But do you know the glue or this fabric that no one sees, this what holds it all together, came from that course at the Data Lab, when another quote that I took away from that was, "The future of our economy is based on trust." Like, that's the currency that we must operate in. So I thought, I can't do this if I don't trust people. And every person that I've brought into the fold, I live and breathe trust. And that has came with doing that introspection of self-trust and the inner work you have to do to be able to trust others. And entrepreneurship doesn't just allow you to birth a business or a product. It's your own becoming. And that's a really nice place to be when you're values led, when you're trying to have an environmental or social economic impact, that you don't bring anyone else in that doesn't align on that value, and therefore trust just gives you the freedom to create in a way you wouldn't have been able to before.
Yeah. I suppose as well, it's only that trust is going to have to become a bigger boat as your organization gets bigger and the people you bring on board get larger, the numbers. And I wonder, Sarah, through your work with cooperatives and social enterprises, how you see organizations and successfully balancing mission and money. Any good examples?
Yes, well, cooperatives, I mean, it's inbuilt into the model. So a cooperative is owned by the members. So their services that they develop are the priority as against the profits, the dividends, which might otherwise be shared back to the members. So it's the services that are integral, which is the mission. Also, they live by values and principles, one of which is democratic decision making. So that is very transparent. It aligns priorities and ensures that the organization stays true to its mission. In social enterprises, a social enterprise is set up for the purpose that is either social or environmental. So it is absolutely at the forefront of the model. Um, I love those social enterprises where they've actually embedded it into the business model. So if you take a cafe, for example, that's designed to provide training opportunities for people with learning difficulties, that's the mission. But actually, those individuals then go on to make the cakes, the scones, prepare the coffee, and sell those to the customers, and that's the revenue. And that revenue is then reinvested back into the mission. So it's a circular process. Um, and principally the profits, or which are usually called surpluses in social enterprises, are used to fuel the business going forward. They're not released from the business. There's no profit exiting. So mission and money are well aligned, I think, in corporate and social enterprises.
Yes. And then I'm thinking one step beyond, just your example of the cafe, that the surplus coming from the cafe can then become something that comes into another values-led idea. So what had to happen for you to turn a values-led idea, which is, we have all of this waste and it's not great for the environment, into something commercially viable?
Yeah, I guess it was always been kind of cognizant of the need for like a business model to kind of underpin it. Otherwise, we could have the best kind of environmentally friendly idea, but we wouldn't be around in a couple of years. Sorry. So it was always being making sure that kind of everyone that we kind of spoke to throughout the supply chain when we were kind of doing market research, that we really kind of understood every step, how we fitted into it, how we kind of created value as a company, but then also how we kind of fitted into the whole kind of value chain to really kind of understand the model. So I guess there was a lot of kind of market research, a lot of trying to kind of build up networks and people who could kind of give us support. And right at the kind of very start of the journey, we got to go and represent Strathclyde at a values and ventures business competition in Texas. So I think like the name is quite pertinent to today as well. But I think that we won like an award for having a bold and breakthrough idea, and I think that was kind of the light bulb in our heads where it was like kind of went from this is a student project to actually this could be a business. It was people looking at what we presented and being like, "Yeah, actually, this is good. We're going to give you a small amount of funding, but money nonetheless for the first time ever." And we were like, oh, actually, let's really put a bit of focus into trying to build this, which is then where I guess a bit of kind of grit and determination and working part-time jobs, as have been mentioned, that's where all that kind of
Happens.
had to take place. Yeah.
Really does happen.
Yeah. And then in another kind of full circle moment, I believe you ended up going back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we were invited back last year, which was 11 or 12 years after we'd kind of competed in it. So we got to go back and as a bit of a kind of case study of, we were in the position of all the students at that point. And it was so cool just to be able to share the story. And also things like that I think is great for us because it forces us to reflect. It's so easy day to day to never think about what's gone on before, but actually taking a second to be forced to reflect on some of the lessons, the various kind of pivots, the good and the bad and the ugly of it as well. So I think it was like a really useful sort of endeavor for us to kind of go through as well.
Yeah. Being able to look back at how far you've come, I think is such a skill to be able to do that, because when you're in it, it's really easy to instead just see, well, I need to deal with this thing, I need to deal with that. And I think for students and people at the start of their career, it can feel quite daunting. If you know that you want a career with purpose, that's what's important to you, and you're studying right now. Do you have any advice, perhaps, Jenna, for what students can do before they land their first job to try and get themselves in the right area to be pursuing a career with purpose?
Yeah. So there's a Japanese social construct called ikigai, and that's all around what you're good at, what you enjoy, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And then in the middle of that Venn diagram is your ikigai. And that'll change because you'll go through eras and chapters. So, like, keeping track of that as you grow. But it's definitely a good sort of compass to keep you right. Because I've certainly been in situations where I was maybe good at it and others wanted me to do it because I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. And that can lead to burnout. So, that was been helpful. I would say to do that. I wish I'd known that at the start of my career as well. Although I don't have any regrets, but I think that would have maybe protected my well-being and sense of self, or allowed me to be more ambitious sooner. So I think I potentially played it too safe for a while, and I'm constantly having to push my own boundaries with that. And then secondly, I mean, this is more from what I've read anyway, more of a feminine quality in leadership is to trust your instinct and your intuition and your inner wisdom, which can only come with experience. But the more work you do to know oneself, the more, again, this self trust will come, and you can really look for signs. And if anyone is interested to know some books or podcasts or some guided meditations that can help unlock that inner wisdom, instinct, intuition, they can find me on LinkedIn and I'll send them.
The kind of idea of the impact of the podcast is the hope that someone out there listens and feels either a sense of relief, like, oh, right, great, I'm not the only one who's felt this way, or sees a path forward, or gets a little bit inspired to make a change or feel capable. And I think that kind of thing of listening to your own self and this idea of, well, just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I have to do it if it's not what I really truly enjoy.
Yes.
That's very freeing. When you're just getting started, you can be so weighed down with, oh, well, I've invested this much of my time in a degree program. My parents expect me to do X, Y, or Z, which might not even be true, but it's this thought that you've put upon yourself, and giving yourself just a little bit of grace and room to move through those thoughts and ideas and find the thing that actually does appeal to you. Um, Sarah, I hope as well we can bring out some more gems here. So how can listeners go about evaluating opportunities for both impact and sustainability? So it might be a job offer, it might be I'm thinking about making a career move, or I'm thinking about making this change in my life. What would be a good way to think about the impact and the sustainability at the same time?
Well, I come back to that same framework as the triple bottom line. So looking at a business from the perspective of what is it's doing to have a positive impact upon the climate, upon the environment, and upon people and society. And there's ways to do that. We mentioned the B Corp certification. There's others with a good business charter and a range of others too. If it's a large corporate, then there's a requirement on them to do ESG reporting. So that's environmental, social, governance reporting. Um, but then more widely using your networks, talking to current staff, previous staff, and your online research to really get under the surface of the company to understand what it's doing to make a positive impact. Um, at a personal level, I would be looking to make sure that the job aligns with my values, what we've been discussing, so that there is strong alignment and you're going to be motivated and you're going to feel that you're making a difference. And then the usual things like making sure that the working practices align with what you would expect. How flexible are they? Do they give you career opportunities? And back to that important point about empowerment. Are you going to be empowered to make a difference? You might, at an interview, be asking, trying to assess whether the person who you're going to be working most closely with is task orientated or much more supportive and mentoring and encouraging that empowerment that you're looking for.
I think people can forget that interviews are a two-way street, actually, and that you go in there ready to give off your best self and explain why you're the person to be chosen. But in actual fact, you're also choosing, and
Yeah.
to have that confidence and willingness to ask a few questions
Yeah,
of your
I
own.
would be asking how the role that I'm applying for actually delivers on their sustainability mission as an organization. So, how are you going to be expected to contribute so that you get a sense of how the organization is thinking about that? and perhaps even asking if a question around how they've addressed an ethical issue, so they can get under the surface of their thinking.
And even taking the time to elicit your own values, like write them down in single words, 3, 5, 10. That's an exercise in itself. And then you'll have values that pull you back the way that you need to quickly remove from your life, the ones that don't guide you forwards to your future self or your most growth, best journey. And they'll pull you towards, and then there's ones that will keep you where they are, and you might need to just practice them for now, but keep aspiring. But you should be able to write them down as single words or double barrel words.
Okay. And then going about testing what you've written down, what actually really does matter, because there's a difference, I guess, between theory and having it all making sense on paper, and then you go out into the world and you think you're on a path, but you might not stay there. I wondered if anyone had any thoughts about how to test what matters to you. Beyond that, I have this framework. I think I know, but when I go out in the world, does that ring true? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking, so we've kind of recently gone through the hiring process, so I guess there's a lot of stuff fresh in my head, and I think what always stands out to us is people who are able and willing to kind of communicate their values and their passion, and it's, we don't expect people to come in and say, I've always loved the idea of recycling coffee, but it's whatever their kind of passion or their values are, if that's kind of instilled in them and they are comfortable kind of sharing and being open about that, I feel like that's a really great kind of first step in a kind of not even just a testing phase, but I think that always really resonates with us because there's someone who they've got a belief system, they've got a way about them and a bit about them that I think they won't kind of waver from that, the fact that they're willing to kind of communicate that. And maybe from like a testing point of view is not being too put off if you go through a kind of phase of you don't find a company or colleagues that are aligned with that, because you will eventually find the kind of right team or the right role, as long as you're kind of unwavering and here's what I want to be kind of doing and the purpose I've got.
Yeah, because that grace that you said to give yourself, that you won't discover what that means to you or what that looks like or how that makes you feel unless you try it. And you should never feel like it's a wrong decision. You just made the best decision that you could with the time, with the information that you had. You'll take a new step, new information that you'll gather, and then you're free to make another decision.
So if our listeners do heed all this fantastic advice we've heard from you today, and they start pursuing their future ambitions with the values front and center, what is one signal that they might see or feel that tells them, yes, this approach is working? I am making the progress that I want to make. Signals of success.
The one that's always worked for me is the gut feel. I can sense that inner compass is aligned with what I'm doing and it just feels right.
As simple as that.
Yep.
Does it feel good?
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
I've seen it. I've not had it and then I've had it. And then so I could see the difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would echo that inner peace that can quite easily go off course, so you need to get yourself back on track. But I think you feel it, the energy, like, that be the energy you want to attract type mentality, then you'll notice it and who you're attracting into your life and or who you're repelling, and being able to let go of that and move on, and not everyone's coming with you on every chapter that you pursue. But there's something about the inner peace that you have, or just be able to laugh, be able to smile and make friendships, have companionship, be yourself, because you do know when you're not being yourself, and that's when it starts to affect your sleep or it makes you feel anxious. But do not confuse anxiety with just being out of your comfort zone either. And if you are going through a period of growth, make sure you're finding ways to balance that out, like having rest period, reading books, being out in nature, going to the gym to sweat, whatever you need to do to just balance that you're in this growth zone. But it's not, it sometimes can feel like anxiety, but it just means you're growing.
Okay, so yes, it probably will feel good, but it might be tinged with a little bit of uncertainty and that feeling of maybe moving into a zone that you haven't been to before with the confidence that you can handle what comes your way. I feel like I'm ready to go to the gym now. I'm ready to go and start sweating and then see how I feel after that. Any final words that anyone would like to add before we finish up for today?
Yeah, I think I would just kind of echo that as well. I feel like that's a really good kind of litmus test. If you're kind of unwavering and confident and these are my values, I'm not gonna let anyone try and kind of change them. Like I will eventually find the role or the team or whatever to fit into. And it kind of reminded me of my dissertation that I wrote, which I didn't ever think I would be referring back to 10 years down the line. But I think it was essentially looking at kind of how early stage founders build their network. And one of the kind of key findings was those who were much more kind of open in communicating their vision and their values and where they were going to get to. That was then the magnet that attracted people who could help them. And I would say that that probably applies here as if you are starting to find that you're now being surrounded by a really good network and a community that want to help you, that's probably a good signal that you're conveying your kind of values and vision really well.
I think that is the perfect place to leave it, because that's exactly the kind of hope, I guess, for Strathclyde Inspire, that we would be part of that community that are gathering around you to help you feel that, yes, you're making the progress you would want to make. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and offering us your insights. It's been a really interesting conversation. I know it's one I'm going to be thinking about for quite a while, so I appreciate your time. Here's what I hope you take from today. Work that matters is not about choosing passion over practicality. It's about creating value in ways that align with what you care about. Purpose is built through contribution, collaboration, and solving real problems for real people. Jenna, Sarah, and Scott have shown us that meaningful careers start with paying attention to what matters, to where value can be created, and to who you can build with. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start creating value. And if this episode helped you see purpose differently, share it with someone who's worried they may have to choose between meaning and money. Because the most sustainable careers aren't built on sacrifice, they're built on values that hold value. Thank you for listening to this episode of Inspiring Entrepreneurs. If you found anything that we said useful, we'd love for you to leave us a review wherever you listen. It really helps other listeners to find us. And check out the rest of this series for tips on everything from how to make smart first career moves without the pressure of finding the perfect job straight away, to learning how to build credibility, confidence, and evidence of skills without a perfect internship, perfect grades, or the perfect background.